Yes. So now in the last hour we discussed about quasi contract. So now we know what do you mean by quasi contract and what are the features of quasi contract and types of quasi contract. So that is one separate concept. Yes. After this, there is one more concept comes under this chapter, that is discharge. Discharge of a contract. Yes. What do you mean by discharge? First thing, very important. What do you mean by discharge? Can anyone tell me what do you mean by discharge of a contract? Yes. Meaning of the word discharge. Can you tell me what do you mean by discharge? Yes. Discharge means here performance. Here discharge, when discharge happens, when there is a performance of the contract. What do you mean by performance of the contract? Performance of the contract means when both the parties under the contract have performed their respective obligation. Suppose you are offering something, yes, you have made the offer, that one more person will then accept the offer, then it becomes what, then there is a promise, one kind of promise, then there is an agreement, then there is enforceability, then finally there is a contract. Yes, so a discharge of contract is nothing but when both the parties in a contract have performed their obligation or their duties under the contract. So these things comes under discharge. So that we need to see now. See this, discharge of a contract means when the parties in a contract fulfill their respective obligation, their liabilities under contract comes to an end. That means you have performed your contract. Yes, and the contract is said to be discharged, and thus discharge of a contract means that parties are no longer liable under the contract. Yes, so that is the meaning of discharge of a contract. So can you tell me the example for discharge of a contract? So A selling is bike. A selling his bike to B. Okay, for 50,000. 50,000. A sells his bike to B. That bike is now received by B and payment is given by B to A. So in this case, what happens? There is a proper transaction. In this case, there is a proper transaction. What is that proper transaction? Receipt of bike, that is receiving the bike, and payment of money. So that is the meaning of this one. Very clear. So now what you can do here, see this, discharge of a contract. Now you know the meaning. Now next thing comes is mode of discharge of a contract. That means under what and all circumstances or under what way contract is discharged. Discharge means already we have discussed, that is nothing but parties perform their obligation. The several modes of discharge of a contract is given. First one, discharge by performance. That is normal, basic type. Discharge by performance means, suppose you enter into a contract with one particular person, let us say B. In that case, you have to perform the contract. That means whatever the offer given by B, you have to accept that particular offer and you have to perform the contract or you have to execute the contract. So performance of the contract is equal to execution of the contract. Execution of the contract is equal to discharge of the contract. Very clear. See this, discharge by performance, how it can be done. Contract is said to be discharged when parties to the contract perform their respective obligation or their duties which they have promised to do. So what example we can give here? See, one more example we can take here. A and B, there are two parties in a contract. So now A decides to sell 50 kgs of rice to B and B agrees to pay for the same. So in this case what happens? So A will give the rice, B will give the money. So contract is discharged. If they both the parties perform their obligation, contract automatically becomes discharged. That is known as discharge by performance. So now a contract may be discharged by performance in any one of the following way. First one, so there are basically two types of performance. So one is actual performance, second is attempted performance. What do you mean by actual performance? Actual performance is nothing but performance by both the party. If one party does the performance, then only his obligation is discharged. Suppose A has given the rise. A has given the rise. In that case, A's obligation or A's duty is discharged. What about B? B is yet to make the payment for the rise. In that case, B's obligations are not discharged unless and until he makes the payment. So that is about this. Yes, that is actual performance. Second one, attempted performance. What do you mean by attempted performance? A contract is said to be discharged by attempted performance when promisor has made an offer to perform the promise, but it is rejected or declined by the promisee. What example you can give for attempted performance? Suppose you have uh, one two-wheeler. Okay, once again we'll take the example of a two-wheeler, and that is a 10-year-old two-wheeler. Now you declare that anyone in your neighborhood can purchase that two-wheeler for 25,000, and one person approaches you, and he is ready to buy your two-wheeler. Yes. So this is the normal case. When that person is ready to buy the two-wheeler, you will give your two-wheeler and that person will give 25,000. This is a normal case. But what if promisee? Who is a promisee? The person who approaches you is a promisee and you are the promiser. So in this case, promisee rejects. Suppose promisee doesn't agree with the value you stated for that particular two-wheeler. 25,000 is not sufficient. If he says he will purchase only if you give that two-wheeler for 10,000, in that case what happens? It becomes attempted performance. Attempted performance means one party perform their obligation, another party yet to perform the obligation. Very clear. So in the case of actual performance, both the parties have performed their obligation. Yes. So that is the two types of performance, actual and attempted. So first mode of discharge is by performance. Now we discuss second one. Second one is discharge by agreement or mutual consent. Yes. What do you mean by mutual consent? Very important. Mutual consent means what? Consent means it is a willingness. Consent means what? It is one kind of willingness of the party. So here mutual consent means both the parties should agree upon the same thing in a same way. So what do you mean by that? In other words, you can say both the parties must be on the same page. Then only there will be a mutual consent. If there is a disagreement between the party, so suppose one party is not satisfied with the offer given to them, in that case there is a no mutual consent. Why? Because there is a dissatisfaction. Dissatisfaction involved, when there is a dissatisfaction, there is no mutual consent. So now the following are the various modes of discharge of contract by mutual agreement. So now there are various terms are given. So now you need to know the meanings of this term very carefully. So now first one, first word is novation. What do you mean by novation? Novation means substitution of a new contract for the existing one. So what do you mean by this? Suppose now you entered into a contract, then you change the contract, then you change the contract. When you change the contract, what happens? Old contract gets discharged or cancelled. Old contract will get cancelled and a new contract automatically comes into force. So what example you can give here? Example you can give here is you have lent 50 lakh to B. A has lent 50 lakh to B and B said that he will make the payment or he will repay the money in cash. In cash. But after some time, after the formation of the contract, now B tells that he won't give the money in cash. Instead of that, he will give check, negotiable instrument. He will give one check of 50 lakh. Now, in this case, what happens? Parties are same, A and B are same, but now nature of the contract is changed. How nature of the contract is changed? First, there is a mode of payment was in cash. Now the mode of payment by the way of check. So now nature of contract automatically change. So that becomes innovation. Innovation means new contract comes into the place of old or existing contract. So now how and all innovation can take place? See this, novation may be of following two type. First one, novation between the same party. Yes. What do you mean by same party? Same. Now I told the example, right? Same example you can apply here. A and B giving the loan. So parties are same, nature just change. Sometimes there could be a change in the terms of the old contract, but the parties remaining the same. That is the meaning of novation between same party. Now, novation between different party means what? Now here parties changes. How party changes? Now I will tell you. Same example we will take A and B. A and B. Now A has given 50 lakh to B, but now B says that my 50 lakh will be returned by C. My 50 lakh will be returned by C. So now here parties have changed. How parties have changed? First there is an original agreement between A and B. After that B says that my payment will be given by C. Then there is a new agreement. Then there is a new agreement between A and C. And B is discharged. Why B is discharged? Because C is going to pay the money. That is why B is discharged from his liabilities. So in that case, parties changes, contract remains the same. Yes, that is innovation between different parties. That is the first one, mode of discharge. We discussed about performance, discharge by performance. Second one, discharge by agreement or mutual consent. Now third type we need to see here. That is third type is discharge by impossibility of performance. Before that, under mutual consent, till now we have discussed about novation. First word we have discussed, that is mode of discharge of agreement by mutual consent. Under that various types are there. That subtype we are talking about. First one is novation we discussed. Second one is recession. What do you mean by recession? So recession is nothing but cancellation. Recession means cancellation of the contract. Very clear. Novation means new contract is replaced in the place of old contract. Recession means cancellation of the contract. So contract can be rescinded by mutual agreement between the party at any time before it is due for performance. Okay. So now what example you can give? So here example you can give is now iPhone. So let us take the example of iPhone. iPhone 12. So now iPhone 12, right? So what happens now? Now you order from a wholesaler that you want 10 iPhones. You are a dealer, so you want 10 iPhone. Okay, iPhone 12. That now what happens? Now wholesaler will give you iPhone after 6 months. After 6 months. In that case, obviously that iPhone will be out of demand. Out of demand means that now demand for that iPhone will decrease. Why? Because there is a duration gap. Why? Because there is an invention. You know, invention. Suppose if you purchase anything today, the next day itself it will become obsolete. Why? Because there is an invention in technology. New and new features, new and new things are coming day by day. That is why, because of outdated fashion, if you are receiving the iPhone after 6 months, by that time iPhone 13 may come. Who knows? iPhone 13 may come. So that is why, if there is a out of fashion, then you can reject or a parties can cancel the contract. Example, fashionable goods go out of fashion. That is the example of a recession or cancellation of contract. Yes. Now third one is alteration. Alteration means by the word itself is very clear. Alteration means you are altering the terms and conditions of the contract. So how you can alter the terms and condition of the contract? Suppose you wanted mode of payment. Let us take the example of mode of payment. So first you say that mode of payment must be in the form of cash only. then you change the alteration, or you change the rules. Now you say that for me mode of payment must be given in the form of negotiable instrument, either in the form of promissory note or in the form of check. So now you change the mode of payment condition in the contract, that becomes altering the contract. See this, it means one or more of the terms of the contract is altered or changed by the mutual consent of the parties to the contract. In such a case, old contract gets discharged. Yes, very clear. So now, novation, recession, and alteration, what we are discussing, these are the types under mutual agreement. So under mutual agreement or mutual consent, under that types we are discussing. Yes. Now next one is remission. What do you mean by remission? Remission means acceptance of a lesser amount of money where the more sum is due from another person. So how you can accept lesser sum of money? Okay. So what example you can give? Anyone, can you give the example for remission now? Accepting the lesser sum of money. Yes, what example you can give for remission? Anyone, unmute yourself. Yes, example for remission. You can type in the chat box also. Amrita, Ankita, Anusha, Shish, Disha, Kushal, Narasimha, Nishant, Omkar, Pooja, Pratish, Rajat, Shifali. See, you can express your views for remission. So now we can take the example of loan itself. So now I will take the again example of loan itself. A will give 50 lakh to B. That example again I will discuss. So, but in that also we can make certain adjustment. Now see this, A gives 50 lakh to B. Okay, but now B becomes insolvent. B become insolvent. What do you mean by insolvent? Is he lost his ability to pay. Insolvent means he lost his ability to pay and he can return only 25 lakh. He can return only 25 lakh, and now you say that you know that he became insolvent and you accept 25 lakh in full settlement. What do you mean by full settlement? Now B need not pay remaining 25 lakh. Why? Because you have accepted 25 lakh in full settlement and you say that from this person I cannot recover the money. Yes, why? Because his property and all became insolvent. There is no money at all. Then how he can pay the remaining 25? So you say that whatever you have, you please give to me. So he gives only 25 lakh and you accept the same. So this is a case of remission. This is a case of remission, acceptance of lesser sum of money, where more sum is due from another person. So what do you mean by waiver? Waiver means giving up the right. Very clear. Waiver means what? Giving up the right or foregoing your right. You are stating that I don't want this particular thing. Okay. So what example you can give for waiver? Waiver example also similar for that of remission. But here thing is, now you are giving loan to friend. So now you are giving loan to a friend. 50 lakh loan you have given to your friend. Now friend will not pay the money because of some reason he will not pay you the money, or he will not make the repayment of the money. So now you say that he is my friend and I forgo 50 lakh. He is my friend and I forgo 50 lakh because friendship is more important. Okay, so in that case what happens? It is a case of waiver. Here promisor waives or forgoes his right. So in this case what happens? The person who has taken the money is discharged from his obligation. He did not pay the amount. That is the case of waiver. Then comes merger. What do you mean by merger? Merger means combination of two. Suppose there are A and B company. A and B comes together and forms one new company called C company. So this is a case of amalgamation and merger. But in this context means inferior right turns into a superior right. So how one's inferior right can turn into a superior right? Suppose, now let us take the example of house. House example will take. So now you are living in a leased house. Leased house. So there is an agreement between you and the owner, isn't it? So that agreement is lesser and lessee agreement. Lesser and lessee agreement. So who is a lesser? Lesser is a person who has given you the house for lease, and lessee is a person who stays in that particular house for lease. So let us take that lease amount as 8 lakh. Lease amount as 8 lakh and for 2 year. Okay. 2 year you stayed in that particular house. After that, now there is an option. What is the option? You can continue for staying in lease, or the owner may increase the lease amount, or you can purchase the property. So now let us take the hypothetical example that after staying in leased house for 2 years, you will purchase that property from the real owner. In that case, what happens? Inferior right. Here, what is inferior right? Lessee's rights are inferior right turned into a superior right. How it turns into a superior right? Now, that person who was a lessee 2 years ago, now he becomes a owner. Now, owner's rights are different and lessee's rights are different. That we know. So, that is the meaning of this one merger. See this: the inferior right of a party in a particular contract gets merged into a superior right under the same or some other contract. What example? Example of lease and purchasing of the property. P holds property of Q under a lease. P later on buys the same property from Q. On purchase of property, P's rights as a lessee merges into the rights as an owner. That's what we have discussed now. Yes. So these are the 6 type comes under mutual consent, discharge by mutual consent. So now it is very clear. If I ask you the word, you should be able to tell the meaning. What do you mean by novation? Novation means it is new contracts comes in the place of old contract, that is known as novation. What do you mean by recession? Recession means it is a cancellation of a contract. Then there comes alteration. Alteration is nothing but changing the terms and conditions of the contract. Then there is a remission. Remission means accepting the lesser sum of money when the more sum of money is due. Then there is a waiver. Waiver means what? Giving up the rights. Then there is a merger. Merger means inferior right turns into a superior right. So like this you need to remember. If you remember the meaning, then you can write in your own words. Yes. So those are the 6 types under mutual consent. Now next thing, third main type is discharge by impossibility of performance. Till now we have discussed modes of discharge of contract. First by performance, second by mutual consent. Now third by discharge by impossibility. What do you mean by impossibility? Impossibility means a contract cannot be performed at all due to some reason after the formation of the contract or at the time of formation of the contract becomes impossible, or it is very difficult to perform. In that case it becomes impossibility by performance. So now impossibility by performance are of 2 types. One is initial impossibility and one more is subsequent or supervening impossibility. So now, very important, initial impossibility. Whenever there is an initial impossibility in a contract is void. Why it is void? Because at the beginning of the contract itself, you know that you cannot perform the contract. And how you can enter into that particular contract? That is not possible. That is why such type of contract, initial impossibility, you cannot enforce in the court of law. But what about supervening impossibility? Supervening impossibility, there are certain conditions. Conditions are there. Why? Because supervening impossibility happens after the formation of the contract. After the formation of the contract, there may be some event. there may be some uncertain event may happen. Because of that, a supervening impossibility may come. So now we need to discuss this impossibility of performance. First one, initial impossibility. Initial impossibility means it is a impossibility existing at the time of formation of contract. It becomes or it makes a contract void from the very beginning. So in short, you can say initial impossibility is void ab initio, that is void from very beginning. So second one, second from is subsequent or supervening impossibility. Before that, initial impossibility, what example you can give? So contract to bring stars from sky, contract to bring stars from sky, so that is impossible to perform. Contract to convert cat into a tiger, in that case what happens? You are saying that give me 10,000, I will convert cat into tiger. That is also very impossible to perform unless there is some illusion, tricks or magic, isn't it? So that is initial impossible. Now second thing is subsequent or supervening impossibility. See this, sometimes in a contract, it is quite possible to perform when it is made. First, at the beginning, it is possible to perform, but subsequently, after that, some event happens which renders the performance of the same contract impossible or unlawful. Such an impossibility of performing the contract is considered as subsequent or supervening impossibility. So I have already told supervening impossibility is not void. There are certain conditions are mentioned. So now we need to see the conditions. What are those conditions? First one, see this. Contract is discharged by supervening impossibility in the following cases. So first one, destruction of subject matter in the contract. So now we have discussed the example of cow that we have discussed. See this. Now you are trying to sell the cow to another party. Then what happens? You make one contract and you decided to sell the cow after 1 week. But before the performance of the contract, what happens? Cow dies. So here subject matter is cow. Cow dies, then how you can perform the contract? Not possible. So this is a case of supervening impossibility. At the time of contract, cow was alive. After entering into a contract, cow died. So now this is the case of supervening impossibility. So that example you can give for destruction of a subject matter of a contract. Yes, when there is a destruction of subject matter before the performance of the contract, both the parties in a contract are discharged. Discharge means what? They are not liable under the contract. Yes, since it cannot be performed without the subject matter. Correct. So now, second one, non-existence of particular state of thing. Okay, what do you mean by this? Where the very purpose or object for which the contract is entered into is defeated or not fulfilled, the contract is said to be discharged. Okay, so example here you can give is IPL example. Okay, so now IPL is going on. So now what you will do? You want to watch match, cricket match, but tickets are full. So let us assume hypothetical example. So now tickets are full. You did not get any ticket for the match. So today RCB versus Mumbai. So you did not get any ticket for the match. Now what you are going to do? You will go and select one particular locality near the ground. From there you can clearly see the match. So let us assume that near the ground there is one tall building and now you will book one house for rent. Okay, so now for 1 day for rent you will book one house. Now you go in that particular house and stay, but now match doesn't happen due to some reason. Now match has not happened due to some reason. In that case what happens? See this, in that case there is no existence of particular state of thing. Suppose if it is mentioned in the contract that you are coming to that particular house just to see the match, in that case you are not eligible to pay the rent. Why? Because match itself is not there. Then how you can give the rent? Because you have already stated in the contract, I will provide the rent only if match is going on and I can see that particular match from that house. Yes, so that is second one. Third one, death incapacity for personal service. Okay, so what do you mean by incapacity? Suppose some accident may happen. Suppose there is an accident happen to the one particular party. Suppose he is a singer. So one party is a very good singer. Now accident happened and his throat got damaged. Now he cannot sing properly. In that case, of course, you should discharge the contract. So that is the case. And one more thing is there here is a death. Okay, in case of death, automatically contract gets discharged. Yes. Now fourth one, change of law. Change of law, if you see, why I have not given explanation for third and fourth point, because you can write it in your own word. That is why I have not given explanation. See this change of law, I will tell you what example you can give here. You can give the example of taxation policy. Taxation policy, if you see, before how it was, before there was value added tax, now there is a GST. Suppose you have made long term contract, then you are applicable under VAT during that time, but suddenly from 2017 GST came. So what now? Now there is a alteration. It is one kind of alteration, isn't it? Now what happens? Because of change of law, you can cancel the contract or you can discharge the contract. See this mode of discharge of the contract, change of law, you can claim for that. Fifth one, outbreak of war. Yes, when there is a war between the two countries, it automatically puts an end to the contract. Why? Because alien friend becomes alien enemy. Yeah, that is very clear. Outbreak of war. So there are five types under supervening impossibility. Supervening impossibility is also known as contract of frustration. So why it is called contract of frustration? Because I don't know for what reason they are calling contract of frustration. Because there may be several condition you have to satisfy in order to get the contract as a valid contract. Yes. So now we have seen the cases under which supervening impossibility and discharge of a contract. Now we need to see. Now we need to see is what and all the cases not covered under supervening impossibility. So first one, difficulty of performance. So difficulty of performance is not an excuse means what? Difficulty of performance is not an excuse means here you cannot claim that because of financial difficulty, because of some other difficulty, you are not going to perform the contract. If you say like that, then it is not possible. You have to perform the contract. So discharge by difficulty is not possible. Difficulty is not a reason to cancel the contract. Then you have to perform the contract. So this is an exception. You can say in other words, this is an exception to the rule supervening impossibility. Now second is commercial impossibility. Okay, commercial impossibility very easy. How to give the example? Suppose there is a property. So now you are a builder. Now you are a builder. So now you what you have done? You have raised money from several people. Now you are going to construct one building. You have raised money from several people, and you promise them that you need to book the house now itself. After 3 years, I will give you the house. Okay. So you received 25 lakhs from everyone. Let us assume 10. There are 10 people. You have received 25 lakhs from everyone. Now total amount you got is 2 crore 50 lakh. 2 crore 50 lakh you got. I hope I am correct. Yes. So now after that you start this one construction of the property. That is construction of all building. Okay. So now you know that prices are not stable in nature. You know that prices are not stable. That means what? Now first year price of the material may be 10,000. In the next year it may increase 15,000 or 20,000. So like that for square feet also it is subject to changes. So now you are saying that after 1 year of construction, because for constructing the building and all it takes more than 1 year. If there is a delay, yes. So now you are saying that I want more money. So in that case, it is not possible. You have to complete and give the building at original amount. See this commercial impossibilities are not any reason to cancel the contract. Yes. Third one, failure of third party. What example you can give for third party? Now you decided to purchase one house for 50 lakh. You have decided to purchase one house for 50 lakh, provided before that you have given 25 lakh to one person, and you are sure that that person will return the money on time, but that person failed to give you the money on time, and you have already entered into an agreement to purchase the house with some other party. In this case, In this case, what happens? You cannot cancel that contract. Why? Because the person to whom you have given the money is a third party. Why? Because now contract is changed. Now the contract becomes now there is a parties, or who are the parties now? The person who is giving the house and person who is going to receive the house. So those are the two parties. So person to whom the money has given, that person is not a party to the contract. So very clear. So in that case, failure of the third party also, you cannot cancel the contract. You have to perform. Fourth one, failure of one of the several objects. So you know that for various purpose contracts are formed. So suppose one of the object is failed. In that case, you cannot claim that you will cancel the contract. So you have to perform the contract. Last one is strikes and lockout. In that case, it does not discharge the contract. If there is any strike, if there is any protest. So suppose now let us take the COVID situation. So COVID situation, now it delays the activities. You know, it delays the activities, but it has not cancelled any activities, isn't it? So cancel the exams, I know, but now academic year, if we take the example, they're delaying. That means what? One thing is sure. One thing is sure. What is that? This year, now final year student of this particular year will be going out, by July or June or July. June or July of next year. No matter what, if there is a offline class or if there is a online class. So whom it is harm, so who is suffering in this case? Of course, it is a student and not the authority. So very clear. See this, these are the things we have discussed. So modes of discharge of the contract. We have discussed three types, three main types we have discussed. Still three more types are remaining that we will discuss in the